Well, I'm pleased to be joined here today by the Minister for Women, Kelly O'Dwyer, the Minister for Social Services, Paul Fletcher. I'm also very pleased to be joined here by Paddy Kinnersley, the CEO of Our Watch, and Libby Lloyd, who presented to our COAG Summit delegates back in December. As you know, this entire program around the National Action Plan has been worked in partnership with the states and territories. And I've got to say, Libby's presentation to all of the First Ministers in Adelaide was very powerful, very sobering, and has sat, I think, behind a great deal of the thinking. And as we've gone into preparing this package that I'm announcing today. Violence against women and children is just simply unacceptable. For many of us, it's just simply unthinkable. And the reality, though, is it occurs, and it occurs all over the country. No community is exempt. It just doesn't happen in disadvantaged communities. It happens in some of the most affluent communities in the country. It just doesn't happen in inner city areas. It happens in the most remote and far-flung places of the country. No part of our country is immune from this hideous condition of violence against women and against children. When I stood up in the press club a few weeks ago, I talked about my plan, our plan to keep Australians safe. And I listed alongside our duties as a government, whether it comes to our national security or issues of that nature, I listed this amongst our national security objectives. It is as important, if not arguably more. Keeping Australians safe in their homes, in their communities, I can't think of a higher priority. And when it comes to keeping women and children safe, well, I think that speaks of itself for its priority. But if you need any convincing, the statistics are shocking. As we know, on average, one woman a week is murdered by her current or former partner. On average, 8 women are hospitalised each day due to family and domestic violence. 1 in 4 women has experienced physical or sexual violence from a current or former partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, or date since the age of 15. Intimate partner violence contributes to more illness, disability, and premature death than any other risk factor for women aged 18 to 44. These statistics are just damning. But they're not numbers, they're people. They're girls, they're women, they're daughters, sisters, aunties, mums, grandmums. And when you think about it in those contexts, it's hard to think about anything else, to be honest. That's why I think this issue attracts to it support across all elements of politics, all boundaries of government, into the non-government sector. It is something which I've seen all areas work together on, and Australians should feel reassured about this. This is not an issue that should be a matter of any sort of political or partisan debate, and I don't believe it is. I don't think it should be, and that should be avoided wherever possible. And we should focus on the things where we work together. Our government's first priority is to keep Australians safe, and we must take action to prevent violence and support the survivors of those who have experienced it. And that's why today I'm announcing, through the 4th National Action Plan, our investment in women's safety. This is a $328 million plan, which is the 4th National Action Plan, which rounds out the 12-year program that was set back in 2010. The investment is broken up into a series of areas, which I'll ask both Kelly and Paul to speak to. But what I have to stress is it's very focused on prevention. It's very focused on changing attitudes of all Australians, because disrespect of women and children While it won't always end necessarily in violence towards women and children, that's certainly where it starts. And our focus on prevention, as Libby will tell you and as Paddy will tell you, is world leading with a package of this nature. And so that's why I'm proud to announce a program which does focus on prevention, some $68.3 million in prevention. There is a $64 million investment in 1-800 Respect, which has grown both in capability and resource and assistance to those who are affected. And I should stress, it doesn't just address the calls of women, it also addresses the calls of men who have been subject to domestic violence as well. Of course, our focus today is on women and children, but I should stress that that service is also available to men, and we acknowledge that that occurs for men as well. But these services together will ensure that we can continue the progress we are making. I wish we were making more progress. I believe we will make more progress. I look forward to the day when a Prime Minister can stand, whether it's here or in the chamber or anywhere else, and say that a young girl being born today won't experience this over the course of the first 20 years of their life. I can't say that today. No Prime Minister could. It's not clear to me what day they will be able to say that, but I know what we're doing today takes us closer to that point. I think we can say fewer will as a result of the efforts that we've put in and that this plan will deliver, and we'd like that to be reduced to zero. And we have to have that ambition. We have to have that target, but we have to be realistic about the facts as they are on the ground now, and I think this is what this plan does. I'll finish by saying that this plan has been the outcome of extensive consultation. Cross-community groups, service providers, those who are involved in the day-to-day issues of managing this. Part of this plan, as you know, was announced when I spoke at the National Press Club about the focus on providing support for women's refuges and providing permanent refuge places every single year for women to be able to find those places. I've got to say, as a local member over the last decade, it has been one of the most constant things raised with me in this issue in particular. And so I was pleased to announce that a few weeks ago. But it is the process of a lot of consultation. We have listened, and the plans that you see here are a product of that listening. But I'll tell you what, we're going to keep listening, we're going to keep acting, and we're going to keep doing it until the Prime Minister can stand here and say that a girl growing up today won't face this. So I'm going to throw to Kelly and then to Paul and then to Libby and Rhea.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. And as you've heard from the Prime Minister, we have been listening very carefully to what victims of domestic violence and stakeholders have told us about what it is that we need to do to better address this issue of reducing violence against women and children. And our approach centres around three key themes: prevention, response, and also recovery. We have zero tolerance for violence against women and girls, and we want girls and women to know that they can be safe in their homes, in their communities, online, and in their workplaces. But as the Prime Minister has said, a very key focus of this fourth action plan is around prevention. And today we are announcing a world first when it comes to investment in prevention strategies. In fact, we are announcing today the very first national prevention strategy. Now, this is going to bring together with the hub, the prevention hub, experts from across government, national, state and local, experts in reducing violence against women and girls in the media, in our community and also in business, to make sure that we have got the most comprehensive prevention strategies in place. And we are going to enhance the national Stop It at the Start campaign, which has been so incredibly successful, but we also know that we need to take a multi-layered approach to this as well. We have seen great success with the Quit campaign, where not only has there been strong advertising, but also information into schools and into the community at the same time that can see a change of attitude and a change of course of behaviour. And in addition to addressing domestic and family violence, our prevention strategies are also going to have a strong focus on raising awareness around sexual violence and increasing the understanding around issues to do with consent and healthy sexual relationships, particularly for young people. We are absolutely steadfast in our resolve and our belief that targeted, coordinated and sustained prevention strategies can help to end the vicious cycle of violence. I'm also, of course, very pleased, together with the Prime Minister and the Minister, to announce $35 million to also provide further culturally based prevention strategies, as well as direct services for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women and their children. Sadly, of course, we know that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women and their children are disproportionately affected by family, domestic and sexual violence. This, of course, is unacceptable, and all governments have a responsibility to listen, but also to respond, and to respond very proactively. We have been listening to the voices of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and we are working with them on a genuine partnership to develop solutions to end the cycle of violence. And our $35 million package includes ongoing additional investment to continue and to expand the Indigenous-specific projects previously funded under the third action plan, which will also include an increase in family violence prevention legal services and their capacity to deliver holistic crisis management for Indigenous women and their children, new funding to support Indigenous women and children through intensive case management in areas of high demand and including in remote areas, so that they're able to access services that work with the whole family and to also address the impacts of violence, and practical intervention programs to address past trauma and provide the tools and skills that are needed to develop positive and violence-free relationships. And also the $1.7 million that will support the second stage of the Women's Voices national conversation that is being led by the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Social Justice Commissioner June Oscar AO. These are important measures. These are measures that will specifically address violence against women and their children. They will reduce the terrible statistics that the Prime Minister has talked about, the statistics that represent the lives of mothers, of grandmothers, of daughters, of sisters, and also of friends and work colleagues. We are absolutely and wholeheartedly focused on this issue, and the record investment today will make that difference.
Well, thank you, Kelly, and for the work you've put into this, and also to you, Paul.
Well, thank you, PM. Thank you, Kelly. Look, as the Prime Minister and Minister O'Dwyer have made clear, this $328 million package includes a balance between, on the one hand, some very significant measures directed at prevention and long-term attitudinal change, so we reduce the forces underpinning violence against women. But it also includes very substantial funding for frontline services as part of the Commonwealth's contribution to the fourth action plan under the National Plan to reduce violence against women and their children. For example, a part of that $82 million in funding for frontline services is $10 million to deliver specialised family violence services to an additional 16 locations around the country. Some 20,000 additional counselling services will be funded under that. And there's initiatives across a range of portfolios. For example, in the Attorney General's portfolio, there'll be some $10 million of funding to better coordinate what goes on in the family courts with the work of specialised state agencies that deal with violence against women, so that we're getting a better coordination between those two systems. So $82 million for frontline services, and in addition, $64 million for 1800 Respect, as the Prime Minister touched on. Now, 1800 Respect is our national counselling service for victims of family and domestic violence and sexual violence. It's been operating for quite a number of years, and the number of calls coming in is increasing rapidly. In 2017-18, there were 98,000 completed calls or internet chat sessions. In 2018-19, that's expected to be 160,000. Now this funding, this 64 million of funding, will be sufficient for 575,000 calls and chat sessions over a 2-year period, because more Australians are calling 1800-RESPECT, 1800-737-732. I'd say to any woman who is listening, indeed any man as well, as the Prime Minister mentioned, if you have been exposed to domestic or family violence, please call 1800-RESPECT, because there are specialised counsellors there able to assist you, able to work with you on what the next steps are that you should take. This is a vital frontline service, $64 million. So across this package, a mix of frontline services, a mix of long-term strategies directed towards prevention, all part of taking a further step on the journey towards that outcome that the Prime Minister has identified, of getting towards that point. We're not there yet, but we're on the journey towards it, when a young girl can be born and we can be confident that she's not going to be exposed to domestic or family violence. So with that, I think we're going to go to...
We're going to go to Patty.